lies a forgotten town, claimed by the forces of nature, aided by our ambition as a society to tame the untamed. The town's name was Singapore, home to some 300 Michiganders who helped create a bustling community known for its work in the Michigan lumber and shipbuilding industries. After a combination of fire and deforestation ravaged neighboring and the local community respectively, nothing remained in the way of the dunes of Lake Michigan from claiming the landscape. All that remains today of what has been called Michigan's Pompeii is buried beneath those dunes behind us. Today, the same push for development that ultimately led to Singapore's demise nearly 150 years ago threatens the very dunes that buried it. The land in question is a large portion of the north shore of the Kalamazoo River outlet near Saugatuck. The land was purchased by members of the Padnos and Bosgarov families in a confidential arrangement that overbid and successfully seized the land from local conservation efforts spearheaded by the Saugatuck Dunes Coastal Alliance. This land is sandwiched between Talmadge Woods and Saugatuck Harbor Natural Area to the south and Saugatuck Dune State Park to the north. It includes vast areas of interdunal wetlands and contains the historical remains of Singapore. Not only is the development a direct disruption to a large and otherwise continuous stretch of dune lands, but many of its elements are in violation of the public trust along with state and local laws. The development is far from being completed and still requires many permits to be approved before any work can begin. One part of this development proposal is a large marina here at the inlet of the Kalamazoo River where it meets Lake Michigan. Not only would this create a large amount of congestion for boat traffic, but it also has the potential to impact wildlife and fish species, especially the lake sturgeon, the largest species of fish found in Michigan. According to the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, an estimated 25 to 30 sturgeon return to the Kalamazoo River in spring to spawn. The Kalamazoo used to support thousands of sturgeon, but loss of habitat and chemical contamination have destroyed the population. 9 miles upriver from the marina development site, a streamside rearing facility has been created at New Richmond Bridge Park, where sturgeon eggs captured in the river are brought to be reared and released as they mature into fingerling sturgeon. The hope is these fish will return to this area to spawn and revive the population, but further development like the Saugatuck Marina complicate this fragile situation. This highlighted section of the Sturgeon Rehabilitation Program reads, "Currently, there is no mechanism to allow safe passage for adult lake sturgeon upstream to spawn or larval stages to drift downstream past the multiple dams that exist. Juvenile lake sturgeon habitat in Kalamazoo Lake has been threatened by dredging and shoreline development and remains an area of concern for PCB contamination." So this is the proposed area for the marina, and as you can see, according to my depth finder here, it's only 9.5 feet. Not much structure going on down there, but this entire area would need to be dredged on top of the massive construction project that would need to take place. A construction project of this scale would have many impacts on the fish and wildlife of the area, including drastic habitat fragmentation, from the strong population of deer to the various large bird species like the bald eagle. The disruption of this natural area is something that should be avoided. Bald eagles have begun nesting only 500 yards from the proposed marina. With eagle populations rising, areas like this need protection rather than construction. Considering the fact that alternative sites exist, like Tower Marine found upriver, this project is entirely unnecessary. Large marinas closer to town have less impact on the fish of the Kalamazoo River and the wildlife that call the dunes home, while also keeping human activity closer to town where a strong lakefront community could benefit economically from the addition of a new marina. Lake Michigan provides some 300,000 acres of sand dunes, the largest concentration of freshwater dunes in the world. While the dunes are great for our own enjoyment of nature, they also offer an ecosystem rich in biodiversity. From the migratory fish species of the Kalamazoo River to the wildlife found on land that is abundant in the area, the developments trying to take hold of this area would be of great consequence to both fish and wildlife and our own enjoyment of this beautiful natural resource. For anglers like me, protecting the populations of our native fish is the highest priority when considering developments on the river. Here we go. What do we got? It's a pike. Nice chunky one too. Just one of the many species found here in the Kalamazoo River. And this guy is just a young one, but he's got some good weight to him, so definitely been eating good. See you, bud. This fish is why a lot of people fish the Kalamazoo River, smallmouth bass. It's just a little guy, my favorite species to fish for. Pound for pound, one of the strongest fighting fish there are, and It's a lot of fun, and they definitely migrate out to the big lake this time of year, so they're going to be moving from interior of the Kalamazoo out towards Lake Michigan, right past that marina that we're talking about. And that could influence how they migrate. Just something to look at. The Kalamazoo River already has a disastrous history. Unseen consequences coming from the paper mills and other businesses that ravaged it to begin with. So anything, even just a simple construction project of a marina, has unseen consequences. And from an angler's perspective, that's something we don't want on our river. We want the river to be restored towards the natural flow of things, rather than more human development, potentially causing more harm. Restoration efforts can be found all along the Kalamazoo River. The stretch that runs through Plainwell underwent a large dam removal over a decade ago, and the efforts to restore the riverbank with gravel and planted trees are still underway. Many other dams are scheduled for removal over the coming decades, bringing the river closer to its natural state, which is great for fish and wildlife, along with recreational rivergoers like myself. Remediation efforts of the Kalamazoo River allow for a better river for all people. Developments like the marina that we see in Saugatuck only do harm to the fish like this smallmouth bass in the river. So any development that is for people is exactly the opposite of what the state and what federal governments are trying to do by pouring a ton of money into this river during the restoration projects. Total costs involved with the Kalamazoo River Superfund sites could reach $1 billion, with numerous projects aimed at restoration. Behind me is the Trowbridge Dam, planned to be removed in 2024 as part of the Kalamazoo River Restoration Project. Just another example of what the state and federal governments are trying to do to restore the natural free flow state of the Kalamazoo River. The Calkins Dam in Allegan, Michigan is the last dam along the Kalamazoo River before it flows through Saugatuck into Lake Michigan. This is as far as any migratory fish like lake sturgeon, steelhead, and salmon can make it upstream. While the dam provides anglers with excellent fishing opportunities, it also limits the areas in which these fish can spawn. Because of this, programs like the Lake Sturgeon Rehabilitation Program are necessary to maintain and restore populations. With the massive restoration efforts underway here on the Kalamazoo River, there is no place for further projects like that of the Saugatuck housing and marina developments. From legal violations to potential impacts on fish and wildlife, this development plan is a major step back for those in favor of rewilding the Kalamazoo. A project of this scale will undoubtedly have negative effects on the fish, wildlife, and human recreation that the dunes and river offer in Saugatuck. Alternative plans are available and should be considered as the best route forward in an effort to maintain the balance between nature, society, and sustainability, ensuring the enjoyment and protection of those natural resources for generations to come.